host. I'm a recruiter here with the County of Santa Clara's ESA HR department, and we are bringing you another version of our live speaker series where we connect our county departments to the public to learn more from our representatives about their departments and job opportunities. Today, we have the pleasure of being joined by our social services agency to talk about the work that they do and why it matters. We have a great mix of agency leadership and social workers joining us today. But before we meet with them, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping topics and our agenda for this event. So this event is being recorded on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So if you cannot stay for the full duration, you can watch it back on those platforms. We will get a chance to speak with each one of our panelists here today. We will take some time to answer your questions submitted through the event registration. And if you're attending with us through Zoom and you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A box down below, as we have a whole team working in the background to help assist you. If you're watching from LinkedIn or Facebook and are asking questions, we will be sure to get back to you after this event ends, so please be patient with us there. And you can please feel free to email us any questions at deisourcing@esa.scc.gov.org. Lastly, I will review the employment standards for our social worker 2 and 3 positions, our HR process, and the employee benefits of working with the county. So first, I wanted to share this quick page with the QR code that will lead you to the Social Services Agency homepage, where you can apply to their open positions, read more about all of the departments and services, subscribe for job notifications, watch employee testimonials, and stay connected with them through their social media accounts. So let's transition and get to meet with our speakers here with us today. If y'all could introduce yourself, that would be great. So first, can we start with Vanessa?
Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. Honored to be here. My name is Vanessa Merlano, and I'm the director of the Department of Aging and Adult Services.
Thank you, Vanessa. Next, we have Griselda.
Good afternoon, Griselda Moreno. I am a project manager with Department of Family and Children Services, and I am a hiring manager here.
Awesome. Thank you, Griselda. And next, we have Sharonda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I am Sharonda Bonet. I am a social worker 3 with the Department of Family and Children Services.
Thank you so much, Sharonda. And lastly is Robert. Robert, I think you're on mute there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Robert Brizuela. I'm a social worker with In-Home Supportive Services through the Department of Aging and Adult Services.
Thank you so much, Robert. So thank you all for those introductions. We will get a chance to speak with each one of our panelists here today individually. So let's start with Vanessa to learn more about her background and get a big picture overview of the Department of Aging and Adult Services and the Social Services Agency. So Vanessa, to start us off, can you share the focus of today's event and what we hope participants will take away from it?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to genuinely welcome every one of you today. I don't see your lovely faces, but I know you're there, and we're thankful that you're here participating in the event, because today we're going to be highlighting chances on how to connect with the talent that represents the Social Services Agency, and to understand how you can come to our agency and provide purpose to the community in which we serve. And then specifically, we're going to talk about the needs of the Department of Aging and Adult Services and the Department of Family and Children Services, because the growing demand is there. And so this is an opportunity for some of us to share our perspective. I will note that moving forward, I would love to be able to use DOS and DFCS to represent the Department of Aging and Adult Services and the Department of Family and Children Services. I think it'll just be helpful all around. Thank you.
Awesome. So can you help us understand what SSA does, the communities we serve, and talk briefly about the core departments?
Thank you. You know, I don't think that there is a community member that social services doesn't touch. We serve families, we serve children, we serve older adults, we serve veterans, we serve people with disabilities that represent the gamut of the people that I just mentioned. So the social services agency really touches all the individuals in the community in one way or another. I'd like to just highlight some of our core departments. So the Department of Employment and Benefits Services is the department that supports our community with getting through Medi-Cal applications, CalFresh, which is also known as food stamps, things like CalWorks to support people getting into the workforce. So it's the department that really provides the benefits. The Department of Family and Children's Services, DFCS. We have Griselda, we have Sharonda here. They could probably speak to it much more eloquently than I, but it's really the department that supports children and their welfare. The Veterans Services Office, VSO for short, is the department that, as it's stated in its moniker, supports veterans in our community across all ages. And then last but not least is the Department of Aging and Adult Services, again, DOS. We have 5 programs in the department, and I'm going to call out just a few. We have Adult Protective Services that really supports providing people that might be abused. We also have in-home supportive services. Robert is going to speak to that a bit in more depth. And we have the Senior Nutrition Program, the program that provides a lot of nutrition supports in the community. And then I'm just going to lastly say that our mission here in Social Services Agency is to provide service with dignity, equity, and impact. And I would say every day through the work that we do, irrespective of the department that you're in, we do that in the most dignified way that we can, in a way that has the greatest impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing to hear all the different departments and services we offer. I mean, I've lived here in the Bay Area my whole life and didn't really understand the breadth and depth that SSA has in helping our community out. So it's amazing to hear. I know you have an interesting professional background. So what led you to your current role as the director of DOS?
Thank you. You know, my career with the county started many years ago in public health. So my background is in the health science field, health services field, really rooted on identifying system level issues that impact the health and well-being of people. At the time when I was at public health, I just happened to have the opportunity to focus on building out aging services, aging programs at the public health department. And that landed me with the opportunity to build my skill set and be able to apply and work as the senior nutrition program manager. And I can just say that at the heart of a lot of what I do, I go back to that experience because at that time, the program had to do a huge lift to provide the community its supports. And when we go back to talking about the mission and the focus of social services, honestly, through and through the work that you do, that deep mission, the deep value and sense of purpose that comes through that brings you back. And so I left social services several years ago to join the health system, Santa Clara Valley Healthcare, and I'm thankful to have had that experience because it gave me the opportunity to more deeply understand the science behind employee engagement and how to build workforce behind you in a way that honors them. And so I came back to social services and I'm deeply, deeply excited to be here. One, because I have a deep belief that our social safety net is the foundation for strong lives in our community. And I'm going to say that again, the social safety net is the foundation for strong lives. And I say that because as the second largest agency in Santa Clara County, again, I go back to the ability and the impact that this agency has is really quite large. I also really love that I'm able to bring back my passion for building systems that honors people dignities in this role. And so I'll just say that My experience throughout Santa Clara County has been varied and in different departments. And I'll just land on saying that social services is definitely one of the places that I call home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good underlying point of just being able to branch out with the county and go to different places, and you're able to understand this perspective of this department, and you're able to kind of like round out your experience and then come back as a more complete person of understanding everything. So it's amazing to hear. Why should someone consider working in DOS right now?
I think there's multiple reasons why you should consider working for DOS. I mean, the first one I just mentioned just a second ago, we are the second largest agency in Santa Clara County. And as such, I think there's constant opportunity to iterate on yourself. Just like you said, Taylor, opportunities with the county exist all across the board, but then in social services itself, it's so large. And so I just want to definitely highlight that. I'm going to call out four very specific things. I think the first thing is impact. Our ability to impact the lives of the communities that are most marginalized is so great. And I just love that about this work. The second thing is, and I guess I'm going to iterate on my first point, and that is growth. Again, I mentioned that there's a lot of opportunity within social services within itself just because of how large it is. And I just offer my personal experience and my example in my growth trajectory within social services as a testament to that. Stability. I think that roles in public service are reliable and consistent. I have personally been in the public sector since I graduated college and wouldn't leave it for anything. Again, I think because if its ability to have an impact and there's constant opportunities. And then the last thing that I'm going to say is the purpose. Um, every role in this agency is valuable. We are not departments without the people that provide the structure for those departments. And every single one of those individuals supports the community. And I think that there's just so much purpose when you serve a greater cause. And the last thing that I'm going to say is my personal philosophy is I believe in supporting the people that help the people. And again, it goes back to purpose. The people helping the people are the individuals coming and providing supportive services to the communities that we serve. And so it is a very vested interest of our leadership across this agency to do right and course correct whenever possible to address the needs of the people providing those services.
And what's next for Dawson? What are some of the traits the department is looking for in candidates?
So DOS is an interesting division. Candidly, it is the smallest department within social services, but it is the greatest growing population in Santa Clara County. So by 2060, somewhere around 30% of the population in Santa Clara County is going to be 60 and over. So what do I see? We are going to need to evolve this department to meet the growing demands of the aging population. We're in the process of doing some internal strategic planning to sort of think about what that looks like from a thought to a practice. Equity-focused service delivery is going to be critical. We know that in times of minimization, there's going to be a tendency for people to fall off of safety net services. And I think it's going to be critical to be equity focused in our service delivery to catch those folks. And then I think the last thing I'm going to land on is it's going to be critical to have an integrated care models and some policy changes across all of our system so that we're leveraging each other in a way that honors the community, but also that ties in our services in a way that builds efficiency.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that you mentioned of the growing number of older adults in this area, just because, my parents and my girlfriend's parents are, came here in the 70s and 80s, and that generation was a huge generation for our time. So it's going to be a big priority in the next coming years. So that was an interesting point that you made. And I'm sure this is a popular topic as of late as well, but despite some of the challenges we are facing right now due to budget cuts, can you talk about how SSA is approaching hiring right now and what the current priorities are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be silly if we didn't acknowledge the statewide and local budget pressures. And what I will say is our county remains committed to community service. That is the foundation. And as such, this includes the continuing the continual hiring for critical roles, especially in DOS and in DFCS. I think some examples of those critical roles are those social workers, those folks that are providing essential services on the front lines, ensuring people are safe and have access to further resources and beyond. And so I would just say that the county is really committed to that mission.
Absolutely. So thank you, Vanessa, for discussing what SSA stands for, but also why now, such a pivotal time for public service in our county. You touched on the importance of social workers in delivering essential services, and that leads perfectly into our next speaker. But before we talk with Griselda, I noticed a lot of people joining, so we have a great turnout right now. You all have submitted some questions, so if you have any more questions, please use the Q&A chat box down below, okay? Okay, so next we have Griselda. Griselda is a project manager within the Department of Family and Children's Services, and she will walk us through what the social work journey looks like from the different roles within DFCS to the training, growth, and support systems we offer. So Griselda, can you start by giving us an overview of DFCS and how the department is structured and where social workers fit within it?
Yes, thank you, Taylor. And thank you for joining us today and making time to listen to our presentation. So the Department of Family and Children's mission is to keep children safe and families strong. And we really do a lot of partnership with our community to do so with education system, health system, community-based organizations, and the court system when needed. The vision really is to support families to reach their unique potential. And our role here really is to provide the tools to help parents and caregivers raise children safely. Now, Department of Family and Children's Services is one of the largest departments in Santa Clara County. We have over 730 staff here, and those positions range from office professionals, analysts, social workers, supervisors, and our management team. Because we serve all of Santa Clara County, we do also have offices beyond here in San Jose. We have offices down in our South County region, Gilroy and San Martin. And we here at DFCS do really operate 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, since we are working to ensure child safety. And we do have various programs that support the entire child welfare system. Usually the first contact that the community may have with our agency is through our hotline. And so we do have social workers who work there answering calls related to allegations of abuse and neglect. We have our emergency response and dependent intake social workers who are investigating those allegations of abuse and neglect by going out to the community and meeting with families and children. Now, if we have a family that does come into our system, we have social workers who provide case management services for families that may have court involvement, but also that may not have court involvement. And then we have an array of other programs that we support children and youth with through here at DFCS. We have the dually involved youth unit. Social workers are working with our probation juvenile system to support youth. We also have a non-minor dependent program, which is for youth that we serve up to the age of 24. So there really is an array of services that our department provides here.
Okay. And can you also touch on the different work hours? And I know Vanessa talked about the vision and mission with DOS, but can you touch on that more about DFCS as well?
Yeah, and so we do have varied shifts. So we, as I said, we operate 24 hours a day. So we have some shifts that are evening hours. weekend shifts. And so there is really a lot of different structured shifts here. And in terms of the mission, I mean, we in our roles are really here to support keeping families together whenever possible. And that really is the ultimate goal, family preservation. However, right, also ensuring child safety. And so we, will come into the lives of families and hoping to support them to really raise children safely in their home.
And I know we have 3 different levels of the social worker classification. So can you break down how they differ in terms of responsibilities?
Yes, so if you are exploring a social worker career here with Social Services Agency, we do have 3 different tiers of social worker positions. We have our social worker 1 position. Here at DFCS, we have about 80 social worker 1s. They are our entry-level positions, typically bachelor's degree. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, 60 college semester units and the required experience for that. Social worker 1s are primarily assisting our social worker 2s and 3s with some of the case-related activities that support children and families. And then we have a social worker 2 level, that's our case caring role, requiring a master's level or a bachelor's with 4 years of qualifying social work experience. So social worker 2s are responsible for managing cases or carrying referrals out and directly work with children and families. And then our social worker 3 level is our senior level case caring role, requires possession of a master's plus 3 years of experience. And generally our social worker 3s are carrying a higher volume of cases, act as mentors to newer staff. And to give you an idea, for example, social worker 3s may carry 10 to 15 referrals in emergency response, whereas the social worker 2 may carry 8 to 12. So there is a difference in terms of the level of responsibility for the cases they carry. Overall, we have 370 social worker 2-3 positions here at Department of Family and Children Services. We do currently have 50 vacancies for our social worker 2 and 3 positions that we're actively recruiting for. And one thing that I do enjoy promoting about DFCS is that you really can build a long-term career here. And I think just within the Social Services Agency, there are a lot of social worker opportunities here. I have personally been here at Department of Family and Children Services 19 years. And in those 19 years, I have had an opportunity to serve in various roles. I did start off as a social worker here. I did emergency response. I did some of the court services. I worked in adoptions. There's also a drug court program that I had an opportunity to be a social worker liaison in. And so I think if the field of child welfare interests you, you really can build a long-term career here.
And what about the compensation and incentives? Can you touch on our bilingual pay and hiring incentives?
Yes. So certainly if you have a bilingual skill, we are looking for candidates who possess those skills. We are working with a diverse community here in Santa Clara County. And so we really do value that. And we provide bilingual differentials if you do become certified for another language. There's also differentials that we provide depending on the social worker position that you have. For a lot of our child welfare positions, they come with a 6 and 9% differential on top of the base salary. We do also have a currently $5,000 hiring bonus for social workers who are hired here. It does come with some strings attached. You do have to make a 2-year commitment to the position that you're hired into. And then there's also a $1,500 bonus for social workers who are hired into emergency response. And if you stay there for 1 year after graduating academy.
Okay. And when someone is hired, what does that onboarding look like? What can new social workers expect throughout the training process?
So we do have a continuous hiring model here at Santa Clara County Department of Family and Children Services. We offer trainings that are a 14-week academy that happens generally in March and September. However, we encourage you to apply now and not wait till those months. We would hire you and Then you would go into a pre-academy, starting to do on-the-job training. Our academy does consist of classroom training and on-the-job training where you're able to apply the skills that you're learning in class.
For those looking to grow their careers and thinking about professional development, can you share more about the programs or pathways we have available to support that? And can you also touch on the social work intern program?
Certainly. So here at the Social Services Agency, we do invest in your professional journey. And there is a work study program that Social Services Agency partners San Jose State's University School of Social Work, and we do provide support for staff who are wanting and get accepted to San Jose's 3-year part-time Master in Social Work program, while you're able to retain full-time employment here. And if you're required to do an internship, then those internship hours count as part of your 40-hour work week if you're part of that work study program.
And lastly, can you just share what hiring managers look for in candidates, especially some of the traits that go beyond experience?
Yes. So, the managers are not just looking at the technical skills. We're looking for authenticity and alignment with our values. The managers are wanting to ensure that staff who we hire understand trauma-informed care, that there's cultural humility, adaptability, strong communication skills is important, teaming and partnership. We do a lot of partnership with stakeholders in the community, so that's always an important skill. Engagement skills, emotional resilience, and I'm going to say organization and time management. Those are all skills that we look for.
Awesome.
And just connecting to the work, right? So before you walk into the interview, make sure you understand our mission, familiarize yourself with the role that you're applying for, and really, lastly, above all, kind of being authentic and let us know about, the passion that you have for making a difference in the life of children and families.
Absolutely. I believe the authenticity and passion can really show during interviews, and being prepared about knowing the department and division you're interviewing for always helps as well. So thank you for that look into DFCS and the social worker journey. It's helpful to hear how the roles, career path, and development opportunities are structured for those currently in the field and those looking to get into it. So next, I wanted to take a closer look at what this work looks like day to day. I'd like to introduce Sharonda, a social worker 3 with DFCS, who's here to share her firsthand experience. So Sharonda, let's start with your onboarding experience. Can you share what the Academy was like for you and some takeaways from it?
Yes. Well, I was hired in 2017. At that time, Academy was 16 weeks. The great thing about Academy was that you could focus on the training without having to carry cases. So you get to really hone in on the learning. Academy consisted of trainings of various areas of DFCS, as well as the Bay Area Academy core practice model training. Also, all new social workers in California participate in the Bay Area Academy training so that the practice is consistent across all counties within California. In addition to the in the classroom training, like Griselda mentioned, is we do have the hands-on training where we're able to go and shadow other areas and really get to see firsthand what the work is like while we're receiving the training. So then we're able to really bridge the gap between the theory and the practice of what we're learning. And what I loved most about my academy was we had a really large group. And so the cohort that you're with in Academy, you really build, lifelong connections and community. And even to this day, I was hired in 2017. There's still people who are in my cohort who are still with me today, who I could lean on for support and who go out to lunch. And so it's great that you're able to really build community and really focus on the learning in Academy.
Absolutely. Right from the start, you're able to gain a lot of people in your field to kind of share your experiences and what you're going through. So it's great to hear. When you got out of the training, can you walk us through a day in the life of a typical DFCS social worker?
Yes. So when I was hired in 2017, I initially was hired into emergency response. And I was in emergency response up until 2021. And now I am in non-court, where I provide case management services to families who are receiving services at a non-court level. And so depending upon what area you're in, your day-to-day can look very different. When I was in emergency response, I spent a lot of time in the community conducting investigations, child abuse and neglect investigations, where I had to interview families and children, either in their home or at schools, at hospitals, in the community. So it was a lot of time spent in the community in emergency response. Now in non-court, where I'm working with families for a longer time, we work with families up to 6 months to a year. I'm able to meet with families on a monthly basis, and that's majority of those monthly visits have to be within the home. So a lot of time I'm doing community visits with family. And then there's another portion to that where you have to complete your documentation, right? Your contact notes, where you're writing up your notes about your visits, any other required documentation, whether it's emails, closure summaries when we're closing out cases. We also have our child and family team meetings where we meet with the families and their natural support to support with engaging the family, if there's safety planning that needs to take place, or if we just need to try to engage the family. So it's a combination of being out in the community, meeting with families, and then there's the other piece where you're in the office and you're doing your required documentation and phone calls and emails and meetings, and of course, any other required trainings that you are required to participate in.
Absolutely. So a lot of variety in your day. It sounds like you have to be really quick on your toes and be able to adapt to different scenarios that you're put in.
Yes, each day looks very different, and sometimes you're also responding to, crises too. So each day is definitely very different.
So I'm sure team culture plays a big part in that environment as well. So what is your team culture like, and how does your peer support and mentorship play a factor in your role?
As a social worker with DFCS, there's a lot of support that you have from your supervisors and your managers. No decision is made alone. If you're out in the field and you're dealing with a crisis situation, or if you're safety planning, you have your supervisors and your managers who are on standby to provide that support to you. And then, of course, you have your peers within your unit who you could lean on. There's a lot of collaboration at DFCS internally and externally. We collaborate with other bureaus. I'm in non-court right now. There's a lot of collaboration that we do with emergency response, because emergency response refer cases to us in non-court. There's a lot of collaboration with other external agencies, with behavioral health, with the different hospitals, adult probation, juvenile probation. So there's a lot of collaboration, peer support, and a lot of support that you receive from your supervisor and your manager.
And what are some of the specific skills you think are most important in your role?
Definitely time management and organization. As a social worker in the field of public child welfare, it's a very demanding job. A lot of multitasking, a lot of different tasks. And so it's very important to definitely have a system of being organized, being great with time management, but very specific to being a social worker. It's also very important to have good engagement skills, right? Especially in non-court, where our families are not involved with the court system. They're not ordered to do anything. So they're essentially volunteering to work with us. And so it takes some good engagement skills to be able to communicate with the family and get their buy-in in order for them to really want to work with us to mitigate whatever, the reason was that they were brought to our attention in the first place.
So, and lastly, do you have any advice you'd give to someone thinking about becoming a social worker in child welfare or just in general?
I would say if this is really what you want to do, go for it. Make sure that your heart is in the right place. This is such a rewarding job. When we're working with families, we're working with families at their most vulnerable moments. And this is children, youth, and families. When we're coming to families, a lot of times they are in crisis. And so additionally, if you're someone who is looking into this field as a lifelong career, and say if you're someone who just have your bachelor's and you want this job as a lifelong career, I definitely recommend people go back to school to get your master's in social work. I also recommend the Title IV-E program, which is a stipend program that specifically trains you for public child welfare and funds your master's program. When you are a Title IV-E recipient, I was a Title IV-E recipient, and that's what helped you to stand out from the other applicants. And so I would recommend, if you do not already have your master's in social work, that you pursue that.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. There's a lot of people in the chat asking about kind of entry-level positions, and those just kind of getting their bachelor's degree as well. So that's great advice for them. So thank you, Sharonda, for that glimpse into the work of a DFCS social worker. It's amazing to hear how experienced teamwork and a commitment to children and families all come together in that role. So now we'd like to round out the picture of what social work looks like across SSA by hearing from someone at the beginning of their journey. So joining us is Robert, a social worker one with our in-home supportive services program. Robert's going to share what drew him to the profession, what his onboarding and training look like, what a typical day for him involves, and the personal rewards of his work. So Robert, let's just start with what drew you to social work.
Oh, well, thank you, Taylor, for the question. I think something I want to share with you is one of the things that drew me into social work when I thought about it was being called into the principal's office. When I was really young, I was asked to help translate for a family, and I didn't know what a word was. And they said, what did they bring a note? So it made me become more aware and focus on having an understanding of language and what things meant and to be prepared. So without knowing that, I gradually transitioned into being a helper of my community. I was asked to translate, go with people to medical appointments, fill out applications, explain documents they receive forms, apply for services. So I was actually doing social work before I knew I was doing it. I eventually got hired onto the county back in 1999 in the public health department as an investigator. And then I eventually took on a promotional position with social services, Department of Family and Children's Services, which is a really great learning experience. I really recommend it to people looking to work with the county. It's been a great place for me. I've been very, very grateful. I've learned a lot. I also just know that I enjoy social work because I get to see the direct results of my work and the impact of our work. And it's also very rewarding. For example, connecting people with resources, services they need, helping people problem solve, and while also being able to help educate them.
Absolutely. Can you describe your training and onboarding experience and what did that look like for you?
My onboarding and training experience came through a series of personal experience and education. And then also, when I came into in-home supportive services, we went through a series of training modules at the state where we were in a group of like a cohort. It was classroom training. We studied manuals, we reviewed them. We also had hands-on experience and on-the-job training. So it was a combination of both. And we also received a lot of training, like for example, how to secure, well, when I was at DFCS, I'm going to backtrack. They showed us how to properly put on a child seat, which is really important, things that you take for granted. But for this particular program I'm with now in home support services, we did modules trainings, and we also do child abuse and elder abuse trainings and things like that. So it was a series of modules that we had to learn.
And what is the work culture like within IHSS, and what are some of the wellness programs available to employees?
I think, thank you for the question. I think in this line of work, it can also be very challenging and very overwhelming. But it can also be very rewarding. And I think when we start to put pressure on ourselves, that's when burnout can happen. People talk a lot about social workers getting burnt out, but I think when you have a good support system like we do, we have great supervisors, great peers. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a sitcom, really. When we're interacting, I really enjoy my peers. I look forward to coming to work. I really love in-home supportive services. We also have a program that's called the Employee Assistance Program that's available to people free of charge through the county. We also have, because we have a very diverse population, it's really important to understand that that's a big benefit as well. It teaches you a lot about other cultures that we may take for granted. We have things that we celebrate those differences and similarities with, like an employee-led cultural committees that plan actual celebrations, that we do annual celebrations and educational events that honor our heritage and the different months of the year and certain holidays. And we also have a gym on site. For those of you that want to exercise, we have a gym on site. We have virtual exercise classes, and we also have a dedicated team to employee wellness.
So you can tell the passion really comes through, that you really care about the work that you're doing. So can you describe how this work is meaningful to you, and what advice would you give someone just starting out in the field?
I think the line of work I'm in within home supportive services, and I think some of the other departments are equally as important, but because ours is an entitlement program, it's a little bit different. When I see the results of my work, it really motivates me. We go see a client that's probably not informed and they're struggling when they didn't realize there were resources that can make their life easier. So that's really rewarding when we get the feedback and we see the results that they took advantage of resources and things like that. One of the advice I give people starting out in this line of work is to talk to people on both sides, on the receiving end of services and those that provide it. You have the opportunity to go online, research the professions and the services and resources that we have in the county. There's a number that's universally given to people. It's 211 for resources and information in the county that I think is really helpful. Let me see what else. Yeah, some people may think it's a thankless job, but I don't think it is. I think the results will show themselves in time. And all I tell people is you will encounter a lot of situations where it's going to make you be very grateful that you were able to help people and give them a better quality of life. And we all come in trying to be heroes. And I think many of us are uncelebrated heroes. And as long as you know you're doing a good job, you do the best that you can do. That's all you can do. And I think with our organization, I've been very fortunate and grateful to have such dynamic people that are truly caring, they're very honest, and they're very helpful. So I really look forward to coming to work every day. And people tell me, don't you want to retire? I could retire now, but I don't want to. I really enjoyed what I'm doing, and I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that we have Vanessa and that we have some of the other people here. It's refreshing, it's exciting, and I want to see other people take advantage of that opportunity to come join a very exciting and dynamic organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, it really comes through the screen and what you're talking about, how passionate you are about your work. And that goes back to some of the characteristics that they're looking for beyond just the experience. So thank you, Robert, so much for sharing your experiences so far as a social worker one and insights for those looking to start their career. So we're just over the halfway point of this event, and welcome if anyone just joined us late. We just got a chance to hear from everyone about their respective departments and the social worker positions. So I want to take some time to answer some questions submitted through the event registration page. Also, just a reminder, we have just about 20 minutes left, so if you have any questions at all, please feel free to use the Q&A chat box down below. So the first question, I could take this one, is how can I get hired if I keep getting turned down? So I could speak on two things, the application side and the interview side. So on the application side, we're always looking to pass candidates, not turn them away. Most of the time is because candidates do not fill out the application in detail, so we're unable to verify if they meet the employment standards, or sometimes they just miss the mark on years of experience that is required. So my best advice is to really be detailed on your application and review the employment standards for each position carefully. When it comes to the interviews, you really just have to practice some more, honestly. When you're done, good thing I always like to do is reflect back on how the interview went and what are some areas you can improve on next time. I know the easy answer is to give the STAR method, but it really is a good format and structure for you to follow in giving like a specific situation and what you did to improve that situation, how it went on to affect the processes in a good way. So it really keeps you like in a good structure and use a personal work story or personal experience to answering that question. So I always think that is a good format to follow. So thank you for that question. The next question I have, this is for Sharonda and Robert. Sharonda, let's start with you. How can entry-level candidates gain relevant experience?
I think my answer was similar to my tips. Definitely, if you do not have experience in the social work field, consider positions that you qualify for that social work related so that you can gain that experience. Also, volunteer work in social work related fields. If you are a person who does not have a bachelor's or a master's in social work, of course, it will be, go to school and try to get that the educational experience as well. Especially, coming into child welfare as a social worker too, I definitely recommend going to school to get your master's in social work to just open up the possibilities of promoting. If you want to be in this field for lifelong and you see yourself going to the top, definitely recommend going to school to get your master's in social work, and definitely the Title IV program, because it's going to specifically train you for child welfare. So,
Robert, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think she covered it all. And I think also, like I said, talk to people that are doing the job internally and externally, review information, manuals, get familiar with an organizational chart to give you the edge, understand what they do, go online, ask a lot of questions, and then grasp the spirit of the service and the intent and how you can contribute to it. Because some people, they do really well on paper, they interview well, but it's not what ends up resulting. And then some people, they think they did really bad in an interview, and they actually end up being great candidates and great workers. So don't become disappointed, and just like I said, keep looking and asking and doing your best and asking a lot of questions. I think is very helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was a great question. The next one is for Sharonda as well. Can you help us understand what characteristics help you grow in your field?
definitely passion. Being passionate about the work that we do. Again, like I said previously, we're working with families who are in crisis and at the most vulnerable parts of their lives. And it's important to be empathetic, to have compassion for families, and then as well as being coachable, right? There's so much to know in this field. It's such a complex system. Being coachable, open to learn, and to apply that feedback will take you far.
Thank you for that, Sharonda. So the next one I have is for Griselda. What is the potential for promotion within the county?
So within the social services agency, there are a lot of opportunities to promote, especially if you come in at the social worker 1 or even the social worker 2 level. Once you've gained experience, you can promote from the social worker 2 to the social worker 3. We also have a lot of analyst positions here, supervisor positions. I would say, because we're a large county, that is one of the benefits for working at the social services agency. Just here at Department of Family and Children Services alone, we have almost 80 supervisor positions. And we have about 40 management level positions. So the more experience you gain, certainly you may be eligible for those promotional opportunities.
Thank you, Griselda. So next I wanted to go back to Sharonda's advice on this. So how do you manage emotional demands and avoid burnout?
Definitely taking care of yourself. Again, demanding field, right? Could be very complex. Vicarious trauma, secondary trauma is very real. We're working with families who are in very vulnerable parts of their lives. And sometimes some of the things that we hear could be triggering. And so it's important to take care of yourself, right? In order to be able to help others, we have to be able to be well within ourselves. So prioritizing the self-care, using your vacation time to take off when you need to. And of course, if needed, Robert mentioned EAP, accessing to the services that are free within the community for our employees if needed.
Thank you, Sharonda. The next question I want to go to Vanessa. This is an interesting one. So how is success measured in this field?
Yeah. This is a hard one because when you talk about a field that provides services to people, how do you quantify that? It would almost be a disservice to only quantify our work by the numbers and the amount of people that we see. And so I would say that the measures of success should change. And I do think that there are going to be measures that we use to assess our efficiency, but true success needs to be measured by the words of the people in which we're providing services to. And what I will say is social services is working through our racial equity work and through other work departmentally to identify ways that we can talk about the stories. And I think Griselda, Sharonda, Robert have talked about this. And I think that that passion and the ability to lift communities isn't well spoken when we talk about data. And so measures only when we look at it from only that lens. And so what I would say is success is the stories and the ability to meet the demands of the community sort of melded into one. And I think we're iterating on it.
Absolutely. That was a great answer, Vanessa. Thank you. So the next two questions I have are for Griselda. Are there opportunities for people without an MSW? And are there opportunities in social work for candidates without a public health or sociology degree, or with a public health or sociology degree?
And I know we've talked about the master's in social work quite a bit through our presentation. However, for the bachelor's level and the master's degrees that are required for some of the social worker positions, it can be in another behavioral science. So it does expand beyond the master's in social work and the bachelor's in social work. It can be in counseling, education counseling, gerontology, marriage and family therapy, nursing, psychology, social psychology. So there are other related degrees that can be utilized, right, for the social worker position in qualifying for it.
Thank you. And last question we have for Vanessa. This is another interesting one. So social work is not just a job, it is a passion of many. What is the county's plan to keep the spirit of social work values as such?
I think that I'm going to go back to what I said previously, and social work is really more than a job. It's a calling, honestly, rooted in service, based on dignity, and in an effort to pursue justice. And with that, I think there's a lot of important things that as leaders, as an agency, we need to do to sort of uphold that. I think one of the big things is upholding those core values through our leadership, not only in what we say, but what we do. Um, and across all levels, right? Because we're leaders at all levels. At every single at every single level in this organization, there are leaders. And so I think that that can resonate across the board. The other thing it's critical, and I know Robert talked about this, Sharonda touched on this, and that is supporting the well-being of our staff, and whether that is providing psychological safety or attempting to get there, those mental health resources, the EAP, the trauma-informed support, and debriefs if it's needed. All of those things wrapped together really support our staff well-being. And I think that there's always an opportunity to grow on that. Investing in growth, a lot of that has been talked about because our agency is so great and so large, vast. I think there's a lot of opportunity to invest in not only as leaders investing in the individual growth, but people having opportunities to invest in their own growth. There's a lot of learning opportunities that the county offers for free that I think is a great pathway towards advancement. And then the last thing, there's a couple of things. Centering equity and lived experience. I talked about this through my previous example about how we measure success. I think we're iterating on this, but centering it is going to be critical. And last but not least, we have to celebrate our impact today, every day, and every measure, because every day the work that happens in this agency is incredibly impactful and lifts our communities. And so it is important to sort of highlight the values through elevating all of these various factors.
Thank you, Vanessa. So that wraps up our Q&A portion of this event. So thank you all for submitting your questions through the registration page. If there's a question we did not get to cover, I will drop an email address that you can ask us to at the end of this event. So I know we touched on a lot about the employment standards naturally, but I just wanted to cover that as well and our HR process to end this event, just so everyone knows where you can find this information. So first, we're sharing the employment standards, the education requirements. If you scan that QR code, it'll take you to the SSA's homepage, and you can press apply today and look at all the positions within SSA, and you could take a look at the starting pays and the department and division you are applying for. So at this time, the social worker 2s and 3s positions are posted continuously, meaning we're always accepting applications. So we're gonna take a look at the education requirements. So as they mentioned, social worker 2, you either need a master's degree in social work or related field with 2 years of social work experience. If you have a bachelor's degree in social work or a related field, you will need 4 years of social work experience. Practicum and graduate training may count towards experience, so please list all relevant experience on your application. So, social worker 3s require only a master's degree in social work or a related field with 3 years of social work experience, of which 2 years are equivalent to a social worker 2 in Santa Clara County. Or you can have an MSW with the Title IV-E plus 2 years of experience equivalent as a social worker 2 in Santa Clara County. If you're interested in the social worker 1 position, we recommend signing up for email alerts to be notified when it is posted because that position is posted less frequently. So all applications must be submitted through NeoGov. So if you're seeing this job posting on LinkedIn, Indeed, or other job boards, it must be completed and submitted through NeoGov. Be sure to be detailed in answering these supplemental questions as those are tailored specifically for each position. So please don't write things such as see resume or anything of that nature, as those will not be accepted answers. You can attach your resume to the application, but you must fill out these supplemental questions and your job history section in detail. If you're reviewing the employment standards and you just missed the mark on years of experience for the social worker 2s and 3s, you can always come back and apply when you do meet this requirement. So next, I wanted to share our HR process. So once your application is submitted, we move on to the review phase where your application is reviewed by multiple analysts for accuracy, so we can assure you that everything on your application is looked at carefully and thoroughly. Once the review phase is complete and notices are sent out, all communication will be directed to the primary email address you provided. Please be sure to monitor your inbox regularly and check your spam or junk folders just in case. If you are notified of being eligible for the position, you'll receive a referral email with instructions to contact the SSA department to schedule your interviews within 3 business days of receiving that email. If you receive a rejection notice, you have up to 5 business days to provide more information so we can verify if you meet the employment standards. So in total, from submitting an application to being referred to the department for interviews, it can take between 60 to 90 days. So the interviews can vary by position and the department, but it is typically 2 rounds of interviews and 3 in some cases. For our bilingual candidates, testing for the language occurs once the department has completed the interview and selected the candidate, with the understanding that the offer of employment is conditional upon passing all pre-employment requisites. Okay, so that wraps up reviewing our employment standards and our HR process. So I just wanted to go over the benefits of working with the county. So we have 13 paid holidays, vacation and sick hour banks, a CalPERS pension, and a 401k program. If you're unaware of how the pension plan works, it's essentially a stream of income after you retire. And the more years you work with the county, the larger that package is. We have comprehensive medical, dental, and vision plans and our Popular Valley Health Plan, which is free of contribution. And if you have 15 years of service with the county when you retire, you will have free medical coverage for life. And some specific social worker benefits that were mentioned previously as well. There is a 4% increase in the salary range that went into effect on June 22nd of this year, and another 4% increase next year on June 22nd, 2026. Griselda mentioned the $5,000 sign-on bonus for new county employees and bilingual differential pay that you can read more about in the job postings. So a lot of great things to mention there. I also want to mention, if you have any leadership experience and you want to learn more about our executive opportunities, you can find it on our job seeker website at sccjobs.org. You can scroll down the page and click on executive jobs to learn more about our current opportunities and connect with one of our recruiters. So we are really close on time, so I just wanted to thank everyone for joining and all of our speakers today for taking the time out of their day to share such valuable information with the public. And I hope everyone was able to learn how these social worker positions and our SSA department as a whole are such a vital part of our community. So you can feel free to visit the SSA's main page through the QR code on this screen. And if you have any additional questions, please reach out to us at DEI Sourcing at esa.scc.gov.org, and that email is on the screen as well. We have a couple of sets of social media links on that page. If you scroll down, you will first see the SSA's Instagram and Facebook account. Please give them a follow to stay connected with their department. And we have the ESA social media links at the very bottom of that page as well. So please give us a follow as we regularly post new opportunities and promote various job fairs and events throughout the year. Before we go ahead and close, do we have any closing remarks from any one of our speakers today?
Just a deep appreciation and gratitude for everybody that came, and also my colleagues, Griselda, Sharonda, Robert, for bringing their passion, honestly, to the conversation today. Thank you.
I would like to say good luck to anyone who is considering employment here at Santa Clara County. And if you are, you've chosen a great place to want to work at.
And I wanted to say thank you all for participating, and please get the word out. We're looking for quality people with substance and character and grit. It's very rewarding. I'm looking forward, so come on board. We need good people. We have a great community. We need great people to apply what you learned in school, learn, grow, and pass it along. And I constantly recruit people, even though I'm not a recruiter. sccgov.org, I tell people. So please get the word out. If you're not considering it, you know somebody would be a good candidate, please send them our way. We need quality people yesterday. So thank you.
Thank you all once again, and we do look forward to connecting with you in the future and hopefully reviewing those applications. Thank you, everyone.